Recording in progress.
At this time, I'd like to call to order the Palmyra Area School Board District Board meeting for September 23rd, 2021. Please rise.
Recording stopped. Recording in progress.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United
States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation.
Darcy, roll call. You have Darcy?
Darcy's in here.
Barney?
Connell? Fisher?
Here.
Guy?
Here.
Gilligan?
Here.
Haldeman?
Here.
Hudson? Hudson? Hudson is with us remotely. But we need to hear her.
Hang on.
Here.
Thank you. Weisel?
Here.
Hi.
Here. Thank you, Bernie. At this time, I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the regular board meeting of September 9th, 2021. Do I have a second?
Second.
I'm sorry.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Motion passes. Mr. Kepler, Dr. Kepler with the Palmyra Pride is next.
Yes, tonight it gives me great pleasure to recognize Amber Miller, one of our teachers at Pine Street Elementary in autistic support. Amber is a recent recipient of the Tanger Outlet School Grant, and this grant will help her provide additional materials for the students in her classroom. Just another indication of Amber's willingness to go above and beyond for the students in her class. Knowing her each and every day, each and every year of her career, she puts her heart and soul into her classroom. And tonight, on behalf of the board and administration, Amber, we thank you for going the extra mile, applying for a grant to benefit your students, and congratulations on receiving that grant. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Amber. That's fantastic. I wish you were here to be able to receive the goodies that go along with it, but that's really awesome, and it's awesome that the autistic support classroom is getting a little bit of extra love. That's fantastic. Next up is the President's report. I have nothing to report right now. So moving on to visitor comments. Visitor comments. Each person will have 5 minutes to speak. At approximately 4 minutes 20 seconds, I will alert you to please begin to summarize your comments, and at 5 minutes, you will be muted. Please keep comments respectful, and with that, I will begin with Carrie Bonanno. KK, if you can unmute Carrie.
Okay. Carrie just emailed me, so give me 1 second.
Okay.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes,
we
we
can.
Carrie.
All right, good. Good. I apologize. I'm using my husband's laptop and I can't figure out how to get rid of his profile. So if you're seeing a guy up there, that's not me. But at any rate, I'm here for two reasons today. The first is to say thank you to Dr. Kepler, the school board, and all the employees of the school district. You have been faced with a situation that is unprecedented in our lifetimes. You've made tough decisions to keep these schools operating under difficult conditions, more conditions than I can imagine. The teachers were teaching to a class and a computer at the same time. The food service staff was feeding kids every day and packing food for them to take home. The custodians are faced with an enormous task of disinfecting these buildings. I don't even pretend to know a fraction of what it took to make this district functional over the last 1.5 years. For everything you've been faced with and accomplished, I thank you. And I hope that a lot of people who are watching this meeting tonight have shown their support by adding a graphic to their Zoom profile, which I could not manage, but hopefully other people did. And you can see their support for you as well and their thanks. My second reason for being here today is to discuss where we go from here. I know masks are consuming this country, but it's time to move on. Are they designed to help us get back to a more normal life? Yes. Are they in place to help kids go to school full time and stay in school? Yes. Does that mean parents can go to work every day and keep this country functional? Yes. Do I think they can be a pain in the neck? Sometimes. But are they worth a little discomfort in order to keep this world moving forward? Absolutely yes. And I support whatever measures need to be put in place to keep these schools open. We are navigating a tough period in human history. It's time to band together to keep us all healthy. It's time to band together to keep the kids in school and keep the parents at work. It's time to band together, not to argue, and put our time and our energy into programs that can make a difference in someone's life. We need to redirect the passions we're feeling about masks into improving our future. If we band together and we pool our energy and passion, what can we accomplish with childhood hunger? If we band together, what can we provide support to kids who don't get enough encouragement at home to reach for a better life? If we band together, can we make enrichment programs accessible to all? If we band together, can we provide funding for sports uniforms, registration fees, and travel fees for the families who can't afford them? If we band together, can we provide transportation to or from after-school activities for kids who can't otherwise attend? How can we do all that? We put our passions and energy into volunteer programs. Maybe we tutor kids who are having trouble learning their sight words. Maybe we make improvements to school grounds. Maybe we donate money to grant financial aid to kids to help pay for activities. Maybe we can get behind the important stuff. That's the school district I hope we can build. Thank you.
Thank you, Carrie. Next up for public comment is Jerry Cleave with the topic of a transformative SEL. Jerry is joining us from the middle school, so it may take just a moment.
You guys hear us?
We can.
Mr. Putt, you can hear us? Okay.
Jerry, are you ready?
Yes.
You have the floor.
The authority and discretionary powers of those associated with K-12 public education in Pennsylvania have been changing so much with so little public attention for some years now. This reality is why here in 2021, I've been sharing details about aspects of these changes. In light of the above, please consider researching the following. The Save Seattle Schools blog titled, "Many Finger Puppets, Only One Hand." The Federalist article titled, "Zuckerbucks Are Tampering with Your Kids' Education on Top of Elections." The Educational Psychologist article titled, "Transformative Social and Emotional Learning Towards SEL in Service of Educational Equity and Excellence and the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania Office of the Governor's March 26, 2021 proclamation about the Pennsylvania Social Emotional Learning Day. Speaking of social emotional learning, or SEL, the Federalist article about Zuckerbucks shines a spotlight on a Chicago-based organization called the Collaborative for Academic, Social, and Emotional Learning, or CASEL. CASEL has been developing the tool known as social emotional learning for more than 20 years. And within the past decade, the federal Every Student Succeeds Act, or ESSA, gave CASEL a pathway by which to walk into Pennsylvania's K-12 public school system. This SEL agenda certainly appears to be about command and control, a command and control that gives those in positions of authority and discretionary power the capacity to disadvantage students and their parents. This emotional control in the classroom opens the door to cognitive dissonance techniques or tactics. And along with cognitive dissonance comes the use of emotions, fear, hatred, etc. So here it is, 2021, and school authorities certainly appear to be using cognitive dissonance and possibly bullying tactics with messages of emotions over facts. Just think of what is being done to students in the name of a mask mandate. Transformative SEL appears oriented to promoting Marxist, neo-Marxist concepts while manipulating children by means of social-emotional learning, seeking to pervert the concept of pride and proud by cultivating within some students a pride in a totalitarian spirit. In light of the governor's 2021 SEL proclamation, here are some of the concepts and phrases found in this educational psychologist article: collectivism, critical democracy, critical social analysis, culturally infused SEL, collective efficacy, political efficacy, social efficacy, educational equity, intersectionality, distributive justice, interpersonal justice, procedural justice, social justice, school belonging, student-centered approaches, student-led approaches, youth autonomy, and youth participatory action research. What guile? Within this educational psychologist article, teachers are described as civic agents in a critical democracy. This article also posits that SEL is to be best understood as civic development enterprise, and that schools and classrooms are mini polities where transformative SEL would require a pluralistic relationship that might foster youth autonomy to lead social change. Ponder all that. A mini polity is a very small community with its own government, and autonomy means self-government. One or more PASD youth autonomous zones? This all begs the question, in the name of educational equity, why couldn't or shouldn't PASD classrooms grant themselves the authority and discretionary power to engage in Mayo-style struggle sessions, Soviet-style agitation propaganda theater, or some form of tribalism? So within the Palmyra Area School District, how much transparency do you see as to who indeed is in favor of, opposed to, or ambivalent about the implementation of socio-emotional learning and Marxism, neo-Marxism in the classrooms? Could the current state of affairs possibly be because of a how dare you ask such a question attitude within the district? Think about all this, please, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Fleet. Next up on public comment is Joyce Mosser. Topic: differences in policies and other concerns.
Can you hear me?
You can, Joyce. You have the floor.
Okay. Did anyone go to the high school football game last Friday? Did you wear a mask? Were you cheering? Did you know everyone that was in the group of roughly 15 to 30 people all around you and whether they had COVID or not? Which 15 to 30 people could be the size of a classroom of kids. Was there a student section? Were there hundreds of kids crowded into that student section? Were those students wearing masks, cheering, social distance? The point is this: these kids in the student section at the football game all went back to their classes on Monday with their masks on. These same students, when they go to class, are social distanced. They're not cheering, yet they have to wear a mask when days before they were smashed into the student section or sitting with their parents or friends in the bleachers, cheering for their team and spreading their germs. Some people say, well, that's outside. I agree. It's different than being inside. But aren't you more likely to be exposed to germs from the open mouths of people who are cheering? I don't think that's happening in a classroom. And what part of that even makes sense? I will tell you what part. Absolutely none of it. I had the opportunity to talk to some of the parents and one student from the group of 17 students that were not allowed in their classes at the high school. Their accounts of what happened shocked me. Yes, the students were offered desks as stated in Mr. Kepler's press release, but it was kind of posed to them in a way that it seemed like it would be a burden on other employees to bring those desks to them, so the students chose not to put anyone out by doing that. They were made to go to the cafeteria and get their lunch prior to anyone else entering the cafeteria, and then take their lunch back to their room. Meanwhile, when the other students enter the cafeteria, they are allowed to sit at the tables with their masks off. Why weren't those 17 students allowed to sit in the cafeteria and eat their lunch with everyone else who wasn't wearing a mask? Sounds like a Rosa Parks situation, if you ask me. Also, after the 16th, they were told they could no longer come back without a mask. If they chose not to come back, they were told they could not use Microsoft Teams to attend their classes from home. Here's where it really gets bizarre. The students who are home due to being in quarantine are allowed to attend classes on Microsoft Teams. Some students' medical exemptions were denied. They have medical conditions and their exemptions were denied. Who made that decision to deny them? A medical doctor? Nope. I'm also deeply disturbed by the story of the 9-year-old girl from Northside and what has been done to her, keeping her in a conference room alone, bringing her lunch to her, escorting her to recess. Then she shows up to school one day and they tell her to go home. This is a 9-year-old girl. Isn't there a zero tolerance policy for bullying in this school district? Any teacher or staff that is treating the students like this is violating that policy. I seem to recall some sort of training that was held in June, and while it wasn't stated exactly what that training was about, I believe it had to do with learning how to deal with situations where a child might be identifying as a different gender. I ask you this, what if a child walked up to you and said, I identify as wearing a mask? And if you just rolled your eyes, you might want to rethink that eye roll when I tell you that it happened at another school district, and they had to let the kid go to class. I sent all of you the video of attorney Eric Winter and his letter with questions that you should be asking your solicitor. I hope you are reconsidering what you are doing because there are some civil rights that are being violated. You are denying these students an equal education by the actions you are taking. I'd be more worried about that than a summary citation with a maximum of a $300 fine. I ask you this, what's next? What if our governor decides that he's going to go around legislatures again and mandate the vaccine for all students? What will you do then? Will you make every one of those children get a vaccine that hasn't been FDA approved? Vaccine that is still in clinical trials? Will you cower to the threats from the DOE or the PSEA? If you thought the parents were loud at the last meeting over a mask, well, I'll just say this, you haven't seen anything yet. I will end with this. After the last school board meeting, one of the parents left something in the auditorium. When they went back to get it, there were 3 school board members in the auditorium without their masks. Mr. Geib, there is a picture on social media of you standing in the back of the auditorium talking to a parent with your mask off. And you are not social distanced. This seems like a replay of Nancy Pelosi in her hair salon without her mask. It reminds me of reminds me of the saying, rules for thee, but not for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Master.
Mr. President, I would like to comment on that because I was mentioned. Joyce, maybe you know who was involved in the setup of that. At the end of the meeting, there was about 15 people in the auditorium when I was approached by a lady who claimed to be a young mother in the district. She had quite a few questions, and we talked for about 5 minutes or so. At that particular moment, she said to me, I'm really sorry, Mr. Geib, but I'm hearing impaired, and I need to read your lips. I said, what do we want to do? And she said, could we both take our masks off so I could fully understand what you're saying? At that particular moment, wanting to help a member of the community, I said, okay. We talked for about another 7 minutes when Mr. Putt came and said we were going to executive session. At that moment, I put my mask back on. Now, was that a setup? This person just seemed to show up and take my picture. And by the way, it was from a long distance. She couldn't have possibly determined just how far we were. I talked to my son about this and he said, Dad, you made a mistake. You simply should not trust people. Well, I want to trust people. I want to answer their questions. But this is not the first time that individuals in this community have tried to set us up. So all I'm saying is, yes, I took my mask off. Yes, I shouldn't. My excuse of trying to reach out and explain and help a fellow citizen was misguided. I'll just need to be more cautious. So maybe you can tell me who in fact was involved in that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Guy. Next up for public comment is Frank Potter, and the topic is the Palmyra community. Mr. Potter, can you hear me, Frank?
Yep, I think I'm unmuted now. Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Potter, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Putt. Good evening. My name is Frank Potter. I have 3 children currently enrolled in the Palmyra School District and am the proud parent of a recent Palmyra graduate who just entered his junior year at Lehigh University. First, I would like to recognize and thank the Palmyra School District staff and all the volunteers who helped make the summer food distribution program at Lingle such a tremendous success. Thank you to Maria Kreider and her nutrition staff, to the Northside teachers and administration, and a special thanks to Lindsay Knepp, Vicki Price, and Susan Craig, and so many other volunteers of all ages who gave their time each Wednesday afternoon this summer. Thank you all for helping to reduce food insecurity in our community. Your efforts are greatly appreciated by all of us. And thanks to Maria and her staff for providing breakfast and lunch this school year. My 3 kids now all want to leave super early for school so they can be there to get breakfast with their friends and get their day off to a great start. Secondly, I would like to express my dismay and disappointment in the actions of a small group of attendees at the last board meeting. Their behavior was embarrassingly shameful, and I do not believe this was a true reflection of the vast majority of Palmyra residents. If I could tell a quick personal story. My family moved to Palmyra in 2003. Later the following year, we were asked by some of our neighbors to join them in attempting to enact some common sense township restrictions on trash burning. We were invited to attend a community event at the Campbelltown Fire Hall, where we were blindsided by a large gathering of individuals who proceeded to yell and curse at us, call us despicable names, and told us to GTF out of here if we didn't like it. Later that evening, driving back from a quick run to the store, I was further appalled to see numerous smoke plumes from large fires surrounding my neighborhood. Another ominous warning and threat. I remember talking with my wife that night and saying, where in the hell did we move to? I distinctly recall thinking to myself, thanks, Palmyra, such a nice welcome to a new resident. Man, was I disappointed in this community that day. I will tell you, my faith in humanity was also severely tested that day. The very, very next afternoon, while at work, I got a desperate call from my wife. The Campbelltown F3 tornado had just struck and destroyed more than half of our neighborhood. If we had lived another few hundred feet down the street, I could easily have lost my wife, 4-year-old son, and unborn daughter that day, who happens to be a junior at Palmyra High School now. Despite the tragic events of that day, the outpouring of support from this community was incredible, overwhelming, and so very generous. The very same fire hall that had hosted the fiasco the night before now sheltered my family and fed us 3 meals a day for several months after the tornado hit. The Palmyra community raised more than $250,000 to support the victims of this disaster located in my neighborhood and the surrounding area. Wow, my faith in this community and humanity was fully restored. Flash forward to last summer. Due to projected revenue shortfalls resulting from the pandemic, the outdoor education program was eliminated from the district budget. Again, my faith in the community was severely tested. A dedicated group of community members rallied, raising more than $50,000. I attended numerous fundraising events where residents gave generously to support this transformational program. People who looked like they couldn't give their last dollar were supporting us. Such generosity was mind-blowing and heartwarming. Way to go, Palmyra community, I thought. My faith in the community and humanity was restored again. Then I experienced the horror of the last board meeting a few weeks ago. Once again, my faith in this community was severely tested. I'm not speaking tonight to try and change anyone's core beliefs about vaccines, masks, book bans, CRT, or anything else that seems to be dividing our community at present. I'm speaking today to challenge the Palmyra community to once again rise up, come together, and do better than what we saw here 2 weeks ago. This community needs you. Greatness is happening all the time. Last Thursday, the Palmyra Great Give community fundraising event raised nearly $50,000 in one day to support local organizations that deserve and demand your support. Organizations that support our kids and teachers in the school district raised nearly 1/4 of that amount. Let's do better, Palmyra. Over the last 18 years, I have seen this community too often at its worst, and I've also witnessed small and large community miracles that amaze me to this day. Get involved to make your community a better place. Don't get distracted by local politician Pied Pipers who have lined their pockets, their campaign and their PAC pockets with anti-public school lobby money. Do your research. The strength of a community lies in the quality of its schools and the resources it devotes to educating our children. This doesn't happen without your support. We are a top 10 district in the Commonwealth, #1 in Lebanon County. Support your teachers, the administration, and the board. Thank you.
Okay, next up, Seth Kleinfelter on the protest of the board meeting closure. Jared Kleinfelter will be providing Seth Kleinfelter's comments in his absence.
Hello, my name is Jared Kleinfelter. I will be speaking tonight on behalf of my father, Seth Kleinfelter, and we'll be reading a short piece that he wrote for this meeting. Okay. Mr. Chairman, I am Seth Kleinfelter, a citizen of Pennsylvania, and I protest this closing of this meeting. The reason you have listed for the closing of the meeting does not meet the provisions of Pennsylvania's open meeting law. I ask you to reconsider your intent to hold this meeting behind closed doors. I further ask that this protest be recorded in the official minutes of this meeting as required by law. Thank you. That is all.
Thank you, Mr. Kleinfelter. Next up for public comment is Ryan Patrick. Topic, Cougar Academy and Veterans Day. Mr. Patrick, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Putt. First, I want to say thank you. Thank you to the teachers, staff, administration, and this board on how you handled the situation and events of the past few weeks. The professionalism and communication show the level of leadership we have in place that truly benefits our students and community. This also shows, as others have said tonight, that there's more to our community and to our school, and that's why we are all Palmyra proud. Next, I wanted to say thank you to the Cougar Academy team. If there was any positive we can take out of this pandemic for my wife Missy and I, it was seeing how much our son Braden, who's a high-functioning autistic, has excelled through the program as compared to in-person instruction. The ability to reduce distractions and tailor the lessons to meet his style of learning have lowered both his and our anxieties on the battles to go to school that we had faced for so many years. This couldn't be possible without great teachers and great learning coaches. Unfortunately, one of those great teachers will be leaving us soon for an incredible opportunity to grow her own career. And I just wanted to take a moment to recognize Leah Beltray-Kaminsky for all that she's done for Braden. From the end of the last school year to the start of this year, she's made Braden's learning experience fun and enjoyable. He's engaged in every class and excited to about getting his assignments in and done on time. It's the little things like adding parts about hockey or Fortnite to the lessons that just seem to work well for him. It's teachers like Leah that are all throughout our school district that many parents, I don't believe, get to see what they do day in and day out. The hours they spend at night and the things they pay for out of their own pockets to engage students in every lesson. Just like the sweet treats that Mrs. Maurer has on a weekly basis in our daughter's 4th grade class. But yet, we sit here and continue to hear parents say that they're going to send their child to cyber school to punish the district financially. I know at different age levels, the engagement may be different, but let's be honest here. You have to micromanage your child to make sure they join on time, check the assignments, and at the younger levels, even set up those science experiments so they actually do them and can learn from it. The point I'm making here is on a few things. First, that great teachers make a difference, and we need to do more to show them our appreciation and try and retain them. And to parents, if you want to make something better, get involved. I see complaints about Cougar Academy in the school, but when I ask people, did you reach out to the teacher or the administration? Overwhelmingly, there's no answer, or it's simply, no, I haven't. It's so easy to go on Facebook and complain about what's not going to change, but that's not going to change anything. I can tell you this, I've been vocal on many occasions, providing feedback and have seen the results. To make change, it takes the student, the teacher, and the parent to make it all work. And for those, cyber school isn't just about sticking your kid in front of a computer and then streaming YouTube videos all day. There's a lot of active engagement that occurs with teachers and learning support, and it's a lot of work for parents to make sure that it fits their child's needs. There is a lot of improvement to our program that can happen, and I'm curious if the district has thought about forming an advisory group made up of students, parents, and teachers on how to continually improve the program and compete with the cyber charter programs that receive substantially more funding than we do. Lastly, with Veterans Day just over a month away, I know there's been discussion last year on ways to celebrate and educate our students on veterans. We have a lot of great veterans in our community, and we all have our own stories to share and tell about our time serving our country, the places we've seen, and the people we met along the way. So I was wondering if there's been any progress on how we want to make Veterans Day at the school something our students can learn from and understand the experience of those that have served their country. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Patrick. Next up for public comment is Sean Gooden.
Good evening. My name is Sean Gooden. I am the parent of one student still in the district and 3 others that have graduated from Palmyra High School. Before I begin the remarks that I prepared, I need to express how appalled I am that someone would invoke the name of Rosa Parks to compare what's going on with mask mandates to the racism that was so prevalent in our country in the 20th century. I found that to be completely inappropriate. But I asked to speak this evening in order to voice my support for members of this school board and to commend them, Mr. Connell in particular, for the calm and professional manner in which the last meeting was conducted. Despite the constant outbursts and interruptions, the meeting proceeded in a dignified manner consistent with the purpose of the gathering. See, somewhere in the politics surrounding masks and vaccines, many in our community have forgotten that the job of these board members is to ensure that our children receive the very best public education possible. The past 2 years have presented unprecedented challenges and required flexibility, creativity, patience, and persistence. And as a result, the Palmyra Area School District was a model of balancing public health demands of a global pandemic with the educational needs of our children. While not ideal, our children were given the options of attending school in person at least every other day, online, or a combination of both to best meet their needs so that education could continue unfettered. This fight against COVID-19 is not yet over. Despite some successes earlier this year, COVID-19 related deaths are again on the rise. On September 21st, 2021 alone, just this past Monday, 4,939 cases were reported in Pennsylvania, with 68 COVID-19 related deaths and trending upward. Lebanon County is a hot spot for new cases, with 73 new cases per day on average and 52 cases per 100,000 individuals, making us one of the most susceptible counties in the state. But the solution to this pandemic is simple and nearly universally accepted by the healthcare community. Get vaccinated as soon as possible. If you're not vaccinated, wear a mask and maintain social distance. I would add my own personal recommendation as we navigate these waters. Carefully research the source of your information. If you are making decisions based upon a meme that you saw on social media, stop. Carefully review the articles published by medical professionals, virologists, and epidemiologists and experts in public health. They are not part of some widespread government conspiracy. And don't just stop at one. Keep reading and studying. There is a tendency in human nature to search for, interpret, and favor information that confirms or supports our already existing beliefs or values. It is called confirmation bias. Fox News and CNN on both ends of the spectrum, as well as social media, are masters at attracting viewers based on confirmation bias. We also have a moral obligation as a community to protect each other and to serve each other. Acting purposefully in a way that unnecessarily harms another is wrong. Sacrificing ourselves to the benefit of others is good. We consider our first responders and our military personnel heroes and brave because they are willing to put themselves in harm's way in order to save or rescue or defend someone else. At the core of such action is selflessness. If each of us will exercise a little bit of selflessness, we can and will defeat this virus. Some argue that mask mandates are an unconstitutional violation of their civil rights. They are not. The United States Supreme Court has twice held that state and local officials can mandate certain actions. The first case dealt with a state requirement that adults receive the smallpox vaccine. The U.S. Supreme Court concluded that states, under their general police powers, have the ability to enact vaccine laws to protect their citizens. The second case involved students who were excluded from public and private schools who were not vaccinated for smallpox. The court again concluded that it is within the police power of the state to provide for compulsory vaccination. Just last year, 8 students from Indiana University sued the school over a mandatory vaccine policy that prevented their registration if they were not vaccinated. The United States District Court found against the students, as did the appellate court. Why? When public health and safety are at issue, sometimes the state must regulate behavior. Some examples include seatbelt laws, speed limits, and interestingly, vaccines. I suspect most of us with children in this district had to provide proof of vaccination for their children before they could be registered for school.
Thank you for your comments. Next up for public comment is Aaron Lamoureux with topic masks, discrimination, segregation, and student health. Ms. Lamoureux, can you hear me?
Yes, I'm here now. Thank you.
You have the floor.
Thank you. My child was one of the 17 who were in the weight room for a week. There are several things that I want to say about that. First, the fact that the school made that agreement with an end date the same as the hearing, to me, just kind of shows that you don't actually believe in the mandate. You're just too afraid to make the choice to allow parents to decide what's best for their children. I've seen the letters and emails that have gone out to teachers and the admin, and I get it. It seems very scary. But if you took the time to actually do your own research and consult an attorney other than the school solicitor, you'd know they can't follow through with any of their idle threats. There are several school districts going against it. The segregation and discrimination reports are what you should actually be scared of because those are real and can actually go somewhere. Second, why weren't any of the parents of those students notified? You left it up to the students to report back to parents what was happening. You made them promise they wouldn't tell anyone what was happening. The reasoning? According to you, it was because you couldn't fit any more students in that room, but I think it's because you knew if they had, there would have been more students every day, and then your narrative that the majority of students aren't bothered by masks would disappear. And I think parents weren't notified because you knew that you were doing what you were doing with them was wrong and goes against segregation and discrimination laws, and we're trying to protect yourselves. Then to send out an email to teachers telling them they're forbidden from allowing any of those 17 to get a link to Teams after Thursday. So just those 17. So if there was another student who wasn't in that group requested it, they'd be allowed. Good question. So there's another thing. You denied them an equal education. And I'm not even going to comment on Dr. Kepler's press release, which was no better than a PR stunt. At the end of the day, you don't know my child, and you won't even acknowledge her medical exception that I sent, which outlined her history and why she cannot wear a mask for 8 hours a day. But I know her, and I know she's a good kid. She's not a rebel, but she should not be forced to do something that harms her physically and emotionally in order to get an education. What's the difference between that or a teacher telling her she'll get an A if, and I'll let you fill in the blanks? She should have control over her body, and no one else has the right to force anything on her without her consent. This is not about student health. I wish it was, but it's not. It's about money, it's about control. And I wish that this board would take a stand for what the students actually want and make arrangements for them. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lambert. Next up is Alyssa Lambert. The topic of
Thank you.
hang on.
My name is Alyssa Lamoureux. This is my second time speaking about the mask. I would first off like to say that what occurred over the past 2 weeks has been awful for me personally and for the other 16 brave people that passionately stood by my side. I was glad to at least be in the high school without a mask on, and I'm glad the staff was able to temporarily work with us, but only temporarily. When we first went into the weight room, they asked us if we wanted tables and chairs. I talked among my fellow peers in the group, and some of them said they didn't hear them ask for the tables or chairs at all, including myself, and others said they heard it, but when it was asked, it more seemed like an inconvenience, and they didn't want to, quote, push their luck. I wish there was more communication on that part, as well, them not letting us participate in gym or any other activities that didn't require a mask. It's not right that because we stood up means that we aren't allowed to participate in activities we should be allowed to. A lot of kids are already transferring into cyber, and some considering it if nothing changes. But for others, they don't have that option, whether it's because their parents won't allow them to because they can't be there for them enough for it, or whether it's because they know they won't have the same education they deserve, with it being hard to keep that motivation needed for it. None of this would happen if it wasn't for the district denying our doctor's notes. The person that is approving the doctor's notes should be somebody with a degree in a medical field, not in education. In that case, you have no right to deny or approve our notes if you haven't been in the medical field. The policy should be changed. There is no reason why we have to be this strict with masks. I personally have very bad depression and anxiety that worsens when wearing a mask because there's no desire to go to school, not even be able to see your own friends' faces. Also, from wearing a mask has caused me not only my anxiety to worsen, but my asthma, and I've gotten migraines so bad I've missed over 20 days of school last year alone. Now, just this week being the first week back with a mask, I had them start back up today, having me stay home after not having almost any all summer. I propose that the board consider making the mask policy much more lenient by possibly incorporating a parent waiver, or even people that had just hand in a note because they don't want to wear a mask and they aren't bothered too bad by them, but don't agree with it. Something that is better than what we have now. It is too strict, and the people that actually have a medical condition aren't getting the exceptions they should. And if they don't want to speak out, I am speaking out for them. Because there's a lot more people that you guys think that don't like wearing masks and it bothers them. Now, I'm not sure to what extremes it bothers them, but I know they don't like them. But it's not even just about the people who don't like them. It's seriously about the students that are seriously getting affected, whether it's mentally, physically, and or medically. People have asked me many times over the last several weeks if I gave up on masking policy and getting my point across. My answer is no. Even with going back to school and students coming up to me, harassing me about making a stance, I am still not giving up. I will keep fighting until something changes for the better. I hope you take my thoughts into consideration. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Lamoureux. And that concludes the public comments. Next up is buildings and grounds. Mr. Kreiser.
Yes, Mr. Putt, this is fairly easy. Buildings and grounds did not meet at our last schedule.
Hang on just a second. Sorry, there is one more public comment.
We had received communication, Mr. Putt, just before the meeting that the last person for public comment was not going to speak. My suggestion is let's pause for 15 seconds and see if that citizen is here to speak.
Dane Braden, are you with us?
Dane, if you're on, if you can raise your virtual hand for us to see you. As I said, Mr. Putt, we received notification that Dane is not going to speak.
Okay. Thank you. So, Mr. Crosby, you're on, sir.
Yep. Due to unforeseen circumstances, Buildings and Grounds Committee did not meet as scheduled at our last committee time. Therefore, there are no formal minutes. And the next meeting of Buildings and Grounds will occur on Thursday, October 14th, immediately following the 6 p.m. regular board meeting, to be held via Zoom and a location to be determined.
Thank you, Mr. Kreiser. Moving on to the next item is finance. Ms. Fisher.
Thank you. And the meeting of the Finance Committee that was scheduled for September 9th, 2021 was not held. So the next meeting of the Finance Committee is scheduled for Thursday, October 14th, 2021, after the Buildings and Grounds Committee meeting via Zoom and at a location to be determined.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Fisher. So next up is staffing and administration.
Okay. Thank you. Staffing and administration met on September 7th, 2021. Actually, we didn't meet, but we did in fact have these things on the docket. Delegation of authority letter from PDE, board policy first reading, local board policy 006. And of course, since we did not meet, there was no public comment. Standard working procedures, we have a motion to approve staffing and administration committee items as noted on the staffing and administrative consent agenda. Dr. Kepler, will you please make some comments if you'd like?
Certainly. You see a number of personnel actions tonight. Very important hire in speech and language pathologist that you see there is item 1. Various long-term substitutes, orchestra and reading specialist, short-term substitute. We wish Kelsey Milne well in her resignation from elementary health and phys ed. Kelsey is great in the year she's been with us. Transfers, a mentor or the mentors associated with some of these new hires based on contractual requirements. Support staff new hire in special ed learning support aid at Lingle. Support staff resignation that you see there in one of our monitor aides. Some very needed substitute teachers and nurses, and one department chair that we did not include in the last month. That concludes the consent agenda.
Okay, so I have a motion to approve the staffing and administration committee items as noted on the staffing and administration consent agenda. Do I have a second?
Second.
second by Kreiser. Any further questions, comments, or concerns? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Next up is the board appointment for the new board member due to the resignation of our member Greg Pretorian. So at this time, I will open the floor to any members of the board that have questions for any of the candidates for the open position. We have Carrie Bonanno, Mandy Braden, Leslie Harrington, and Ryan Patrick. Hopefully we have all of them on Zoom. Okay. So do any of the board members have questions for any of the candidates? No? Okay. Hearing no questions. So this is how it works. If you would like to nominate a candidate, you'll have to have you'll nominate, you'll have to have a second, and then we'll vote. It will be a roll call vote. And Darcy, we are beginning with
Alicia Haldeman.
Ms. Haldeman will start the roll call vote. The first person who receives the majority of the votes for the voting members that are currently here, which will need 4 votes, will be appointed to the board. So, that said, at this time, I will open the floor to nominations.
I'd like to nominate Ryan Patrick.
I'll second that.
So I have a motion, or I have a nomination of Ryan Patrick, and a second by Mr. Guy. So we will start the votes with Ms. Haldeman.
Nay. Okay. Haldeman.
Haldeman.
I said nay.
Nay.
Hudson. I believe Hudson is on mute. You could unmute her.
Yeah, she was just unmuted.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
Try again.
Hudson? Can you hear us, Bev? Yeah. Hudson? I can see it flickering on and off. I think we lost her.
Darcy, ask her.
Kreiser?
Yes.
Hutt?
Yes.
Mr. Connell is absent. Fisher?
Yes.
Geib?
Yes.
Gilligan?
No.
Okay.
You
I
had
have 5 to 5 yes, 2 no. Mr. Patrick is nominated and confirmed to the board. Congratulations, Mr. Patrick. The administration will be reaching out to you for further steps and next steps. I believe you'll be sworn in at the October 14th board meeting. So congratulations again.
Mr. Putt, Mr. Putt, if I may, I just want to thank everybody. very much appreciative of the interest, the willingness of the candidates who did step forward. Also, I mean, truly the level of detail, the emotion, passion from each of them. I think they all took a great deal of time and energy and effort to put forth their cover letters and their desires and goals. And I just really do want to thank them all for their participation. These are very tough times, as evidenced by the last several meetings. So, to come forward to do that, thank you to each and every one of you. And again, just the passion and qualifications of all members really came through in what was submitted.
Yeah, so thank you, Mr. Kreiser. I would like to say the same thing, that thank you very much to the other three candidates. I haven't quite gotten there yet, but thank you. It is a difficult job. We do not get paid to do this, and it is a very large commitment of time and effort. So thank you to everybody who showed interest, and thank you for the detail of the resumes and the letter of interest. It really does show that you do have a strong commitment to want to be up here on the stage. It really says a lot about all the people that did reach out to us and want to be on the board. So,
Mr. Putt, I'll add just for clarification for those that are viewing tonight and may not have the detail. This appointment is approximately a 2-month appointment. We're filling the seat that Greg Krikorian was actually filling himself. So this there will be an additional 2-year seat on the ballot in November. So this appointment of Mr. Patrick will be until the board reorganization first week of December.
Okay, Mr. Putt,
yes,
I'd like to step in here and finish some things. First, a personal comment about the last board meeting. I spent my entire life in this district. I went to school here. I taught here for 44 years. I'm still a member of the community. Been on the board for 6 years. I never left a board meeting with the feeling that I had 2 weeks ago. For the first time in my life, I was ashamed, I was embarrassed to be associated with what happened there. I've had a couple weeks to think about it, and I've had a lot of public support of people coming forward. And we heard some of this tonight of people saying, we're really not like that. But I think we definitely need to do something here. Out of respect to Dr. Kepler and to the need to do what is right for the district, because we have some hires, vital hires, that had to be handled. I had intended to do this right after roll call, but I decided we had to wait until the end of staffing administration so that our work here could count tonight. I'm going to start with a point of order. And Dr. Kepler, what exactly is the mask rule in the state of Pennsylvania for all public schools?
The acting secretary's order speaks to masks being required in school buildings, students, staff, visitors, and it's our understanding that that would include public meetings.
So that would include board members, right?
Correct.
Okay. We have 2 board members that have not masked. Mrs. Gilligan, I have tremendous respect for you as far as your support this year, especially with the teacher contract, and also with the budget. Mrs. Holloman, you've only been here for 1 meeting. I really don't know. I've read your resume, but nothing else. It is my concern that we need to set examples in order, and I think the rule clearly states, in order to get into the building, you need to wear a mask. You're setting an example. You may not agree with it, but right now, that is the ruling. And I would humbly ask, would you please consider wearing a mask?
No. I'm standing up for the people who do not want to wear a mask, that they have the right, and as so do I. So, no.
Okay. Well, I do have rights as well. I find it very difficult to look in the eyes of our students, our administrators, our support staffs, and our teachers, and require them to wear masks. And if they do not, there's consequences. And unless we're willing to abide by the rules and regulations, we are setting a bad example. Therefore, I can no longer continue this meeting with my presence here. I will be leaving. Thank you very much.
As a group, we represent the school district. We are elected officials. And according to the statement and the governor's ruling, I agree with Mr. Guy. And as a group, I do believe we need to set an example for our district. And for that reason, I support Mr. Guy. And I am disappointed in my fellow group members who choose to enter the school building without a mask this evening.
I'd just like to comment that I'm not going to be bullied. We're here to represent the community. We are representing the ones that can't comment, who are coming to us, thanking us for standing our ground. I understand that there's a rule to wear a mask inside this building, but I am also an elected official of the people of this community, and I am representing the ones that feel masks should be optional. And I think it is very childish that these two senior board members walk out like this. I'm here to commence with business. I have nothing against them for their beliefs, but I think I'm holding my ground.
And I agree with we are to be an example of leadership, and I am representing this community. That is our job. We are to uphold that oath, and I feel a majority of the community want the masks optional, and I am here to be their voice. And again, yes, no disrespect toward anybody. It's not personal. It's I'm doing my job as a school board member.
Dr. Kepler, I won't make this personal. I've tried to take everything in and listen. I respect everybody's beliefs. Everybody's fully entitled to those beliefs. But I'm not sure the slippery slope argument here and the understanding of where do we stop conducting school business? Where do we start setting an example? That's part of leadership as well. If you don't agree with the school's dress policy, do you just violate it? I haven't heard anybody in all my years on the board come forward and say, I disagree with the dress policy, which we have one. Those that aren't aware, we have one. And we're not denying people education or denying them their rights or violating their civil rights by enforcing our dress code. I haven't heard anybody stand forth and represent the community from that perspective. And I think what we do as a board does matter. And what we do as members does have to not just represent the community, but represent the interests of continuing education. And we're putting our faculty and our administration in an untenable, impossible situation. Members of our board asked for clarifications from attorneys. We've gotten those incredibly clearly. Most attorneys won't put things like that in writing. Most attorneys are ambivalent and ubiquitous at best. The directives and things from our special education and solicitor attorneys could not have been more clear on this situation. So while I respect everybody's beliefs, I do agree. I think we do have a role to be leaders, and part of that is leading and supporting the staff and employees that we're here to represent as well. And I think we're putting them in an impossible position by not following the appropriate examples. And, you know, this it doesn't have anything to do with personal beliefs. I voted against requiring masks. I was the swing vote. So all this stuff about community and this and that and my beliefs, and at the end of the day, there's rules. We all follow rules. It doesn't mean that your civil rights are being violated because you have to follow rules. It doesn't mean you have to protest because there's rules. And at the end of the day, I think we have a role to lead and set an example for our faculty and show them our support as well for all the terrible things they go through hour by hour, day by day through this. And I don't think this sets the right tone and example for them. And so, Dr. Kepler, I don't know where that leaves us, but I don't want to continue by making it seem as though our board as a body doesn't support our faculty and staff for the untenable position they're in of being required by law and through the written mandates that you've seen and opinions from both of our solicitor and special education attorneys. And somehow we still want to dispute that. I don't know what else to do with that, Dr. Kepler.
At this point, I believe we still have a quorum, as I think Mr. Kreiser, are you still with us, Mr. Kreiser?
I am for now, but I would like to understand. I don't want to continue business. I think we've made motion on the pertinent things. I don't feel it's appropriate to send a message to our students to knowingly violate our rules. It's no different to me than a number of other things. I don't understand why there haven't been positions on dress codes or all sorts of other rules that we require. You can't come in and swear and cuss a teacher up and down. Is that violating civil rights because we're not recognizing their freedom of speech? And so I just don't understand where we think this is the appropriate tone to set. And I don't want to continue if we can't, as a board, set the right tone.
Board business has concluded for the evening. And at this time, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Do I have a second? Without a second, we cannot adjourn.
Mrs. Hudson, I couldn't hear you.
I'm sorry, I'll second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. I can adjourn, right? Oh,
You must
sorry. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed?
So by a vote of 4 to 1,
No, I said nay.
you nay? Okay, 3 to 2, we are adjourned.
Recording stopped.